But Connor, it's okay. We're dead now.
Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Oracle. I'm Connor, and together with Jack, my co-host from Cabin 6, we're going beyond Half-Blood Hill to take a closer look at the electrifying mythology of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 1, The Lightning Thief. Chapter 18, Annabeth Does Obedience School, which is back-to-back lame chapter titles. I fixed this one for him. I said, Annabeth plays fetch with a god. That wasn't that hard. Boom, improved.
I agree. I think you'd be hard-pressed to not improve it in literally any way. It's a shame, because usually he's on top of stuff with these chapter titles, but yeah, we're in a bit of a slump right now.
Does is a really weak verb.
Yeah, well, from us chatting a little bit before we started recording, for you, it sounds like it's kind of a title for an chapter.
That was my opinion, frankly. I didn't find it underwhelming or anything. It's another transitional chapter. It's better than a lot of the other transitional chapters I think we get, but it just left a little bit to be desired.
So, I disagree. But in terms of, I think you hit the nail on the head, transition chapters, this is far and away the best one. And I would say, even in comparison to just chapters as a whole, this is one of the better ones. You could just tell from start to finish, Rick was having a fucking blast writing these back and forth encounters and exchanges. I thought he did a really great job of fleshing out and building out the aesthetic and vibes of the underworld and literally ushering us into it. I think he did a phenomenal job, personally.
I did think all the descriptions were spot on. Throughout the chapter, anytime that they're stopping to describe a new part of the underworld or the journey there, I thought they nailed it. I just felt like, to me, the chapter, and you're allowed to rely on those descriptions, but I felt like the chapter was really relying on those descriptions for the wow factor and wasn't actually doing much between those descriptions. But I'll be interested to see if you can sway me as we're recording today, because you've got some hype for it that's honestly, it's getting my hype up, and now I'm excited.
Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, my job to persuade you starts right now. We start off the group standing in the shadows of Valencia Boulevard. They're looking at this DOA recording studios. It's almost midnight, pitch black dark outside, but the lobby of this place, super brightly lit and filled with people. There's a security desk. There's this really tough looking security guard at it. And they do something fun here, which is the gang has had conversations and made a plan off page. We don't know what it is, which is neat. I think that's fun. For the book where we have been there for effectively everything, and if we haven't been there for everything, Percy immediately is like, this happened, and then this happened, and now we're here. Right now, we just know that there's 3 kids, they have a plan for something, and they're getting ready to go into the underworld. And the entrance to the underworld is already super far and away from what you would think it would be. So I'm already intrigued. Personally, it has me hooked within the first few paragraphs.
To take us immediately off track, did not put together that this is one of the very few moments in the entire book where you're totally right. For most of this book, we have been getting a play-by-play, hardly missed a minute of what was going on. It is odd that even though it's only them walking a block, that we have missed them walking that block, and that's notable. I just think that's a good call out.
Because the plan was made in that block. And
the plan was made in that block.
Incredibly apparent that this plan is not very popular, but it's what they're running with. And again, we don't know what it is. We've got to fill in the gaps in our mind. But I love the exchange. And again, this chapter is just filled with funny back and forths. Percy turns to his friend. Okay, you remember the plan? Yeah, the plan, Grover gulped. Yeah, I love the plan. Annabeth says, what happens if the plan doesn't work? Don't think negative. Right, she says. We're entering the land of the dead, and I shouldn't think negative. And then we've got this moment where Percy is, fiddling with the pearls that the Nereid gave him at Santa Monica as this is the emergency exit, kind of our ace in the hole trump card, or,
Yep.
basically the "oh shit, everything is wrong"
The panic
card.
button.
Yep, the panic button. And Annabeth catches herself being pessimistic and once again acts as a level of support and says, "I'm really sorry. You're right. We're gonna make it. It'll be fine." She shoves Grover. So Grover says something and he's like, "Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, we've made it this far. We'll find the Master Bolt and save your mom. No problem." It's very clear that each and every one of them are intimately aware of the odds stacked against them and truthfully do not believe that what they're going to do in any capacity is going to work, but they've got no other options.
I did find that Annabeth's nudge of Grover there strongly reminded me of when she kicked Percy to hype up
Mhm.
Grover, and he was like, "I was gonna say that anyway." I feel like Annabeth is constantly like, "Say the thing," and they're like, "I was already gonna do that."
Yeah, but I feel like she was right with Grover. Grover
I
was
do think
so
you're
in
right.
his head, he might not have said anything.
I think you're right, actually. You also skipped over my favorite joke from the first page of the chapter, which is that as they walk into DOA recording studios, on the glass doors, there's 3 simple rules: no
Mm.
solicitors, no loitering, no living.
Would you consider that to be a high bar or low bar to entry?
See, I feel like those are simple rules. If you're getting to the underworld, that I feel like that's a pretty low bar
I agree, but it's a high bar if you're
for the living.
Percy and friends.
Yes.
Mhm.
That will be what they have to get over. And following up the interaction that you highlighted, you do get some genuine peak friendship energy, which I appreciated. Percy looking back at them both and feeling really grateful. They'd almost been stretched to death on deluxe waterbeds, and now they were trying to be brave for my sake, trying to make me feel
Mhm.
better. Let's whoop some underworld butt. I liked that.
Yeah.
That was fun.
And we've mentioned it in a few of the prior chapters, but at this point, it's properly cemented. These people are a unit now.
Yeah. They're a team and they're acting like one. And I think that's really fun. They head into the DOA lobby. Muzak is playing, and this is where we come to my point about I did think the descriptions were all spot on.
Yeah.
They're not as vibrant as I would say other parts of the Percy Jackson universe, but they're very fitting for the underworld, for this sort
Mhm.
of limbo, liminal space between life and death. Muzak played softly on hidden speakers. The carpet and walls were steel gray. Pencil cactuses grew in the corners like skeleton hands. The furniture was black leather, and every seat was taken up. That feels like what a modern waiting room for the underworld or any sort of afterlife would kind of feel like.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I love that they leaned into this administrative building bureaucracy side of the underworld. And again, it makes sense. Of course, that's what it would be. There are so many dead people, you got to be organized. And there's
Yeah,
absolutely going to be a backlog. They've got one ferryman.
he's a busy man. He really does deserve the raise that he asks for in this chapter because,
He
man,
does.
there's a lot of people dying, and just one guy
Yeah.
to get them all there?
This chapter made me love a character immediately. And this is where we
You
meet
liked
the
Charon?
guy at the security guard's desk, Charon. I love this guy. He might be one of my favorite characters in this book. The back and forth that he has with Percy is just so freaking good, man. It's so good. And I love how he's described. This tall, elegant, chocolate-colored skin and bleach blonde haired guy. He's wearing these fancy tortoiseshell shades and a silk Italian suit that matches his bleached blonde hair. He's got a black rose pinned to his lapel under a silver name tag. This is Mr. Drip or Drown.
You know what? This is a Jack character. This is an NPC in a Jack game. I think that's why you
He
like him so
is!
much.
He suffers no fools. He is so to the point. He's very charming, but also very off putting. And I love how the initial interaction that he has with Percy is a misunderstanding of names. I'm glad that Rick brought such explicit attention to this because if he just glossed over it, I feel like readers would get a bit confused. especially kids. They'd be like, "Wait, but Chiron, Charon, like, aren't they the same? Are these why are they so close to being the same name?" And I remember it tripped me up a little bit as a kid, so I appreciated this.
Funny enough, this is the second time he's hit on that. This is actually a callback to when Percy is studying for his exam in
Mhm.
chapter 2,
Yeah.
and he's sitting there and he's like, "How am I supposed to remember the difference between Polydictes and Polydeuces or Chiron and Charon?" This
Mhm.
gets called out specifically. So Percy says, "I am not gonna remember the difference between these 2 people." Lo and behold, 16 chapters later, he does not remember the difference between
Does
these 2
not.
people.
Uh-huh. It's not like he's corrected, it's so drawn out. I love Percy just approaches this guy, doesn't say hi or anything, just like, "Oh, your name is Chiron?" And this imposing figure, he leans across the desk. Percy says he can't see anything in his glasses except his own reflection, but his smile was sweet and cold, like Python's right before it eats you. He goes, "What a precious young lad. Tell me, mate, do I look like a centaur?" And Percy, he stutters, he goes, "No." And then he adds, "Sir." Percy goes, "Sir?" And then he pinches the name tag and just runs his finger underneath each of the letters. "Can you read this, mate? It's Charon. Say it with me. Charon." And then Percy responds, "Charon. Amazing. Now, Mr. Charon. Mr. Charon. Well done." It's just so good. It's so good. And for those at home who are not reading through the book, he is described as having a strange, kind of like oddly British accent. I wasn't just doing that voice for no reason.
I was about to interject. I think that perhaps the reason I didn't find this character as fun as you did is because you were giving him a much more fun demeanor than I was. He really is a Jack character, and you just I needed you to step into those shoes and make him more exciting.
He's great. Do you get it now? You get why I'm hooked on this guy?
I'm getting it. I will say, I was also really loving a lot of the Percy sides of this interaction, so I didn't
Mhm.
have much of that highlighted. But the next interaction where it's, "We want to go to the underworld." Well, that's refreshing. It is? Straightforward and honest. No screaming. No, there must be a mistake. And then he says, "How did you die then?" And Grover says, "Oh, drowned. In the bathtub." "All 3 of you?" They nod. Big bathtub. I
Big
just really
bathtub.
liked the group going, "Yeah, we all died in the same bathtub."
I know, and you can picture it perfectly. He just goes, "Big bathtub." And it says Charon looked mildly impressed. You can imagine he's like jutting out the bottom lip a little bit, kind of a half nod, like, "Oh, okay. Haven't heard that one in a little bit."
When you consider exactly, when you consider that this man has seen every dead person that has ever died, he
Yeah.
has got to have seen some wacky shit by this point. I suppose that 3 children drowning in a bathtub together is one of those things that you'd be like, "Really? Well, that's unlikely." Not the first
Yeah.
time, though.
Mhm. And we also it leads into another thing that I really like with this chapter, and you hit on it, which is we get more of that juicy, like, mechanics behind how the world works and how it's adjusted for a modern American setting while still adhering to these mythological rules. And he's like, "Ah, you need coins for passage." And normally with adults, I charge your American Express card, or I could just add the ferry price to your last cable bill. Thank you, 2005. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
funny. And then he just hits you with, "But with children, alas, you never die prepared." It's like, oh, that's grim.
It is. And then he says, "Suppose you'll have to take a seat for a few centuries." He also mentions later that some of these people, if he's not feeling generous, he'll force them to wait for 1,000 years, a millennia. I'm gonna cut to the chase on some of my myth notes. There's one reference, and in that reference, it is mentioned that Charon, if people couldn't pay the fee, would only make them wait 100 years. That's it. Just 100. Now, that seems like a lot, but if it's your eternal damnation that you're awaiting on, that's not so bad. 1,000? That's awful.
Hey, times have changed, all right? and
I
he hasn't
guess.
gotten a raise in 3,000 years. So, unfortunately, he's punching down. And that's unfair to all these lost souls who are just trying to pass on. But
That
he's got
is
nobody else.
the price of death has literally not changed since the Trojan War. That's rough.
Mhm. Yeah, but good on that price stabilization. Good on you, Hades. No price gouging here.
The underworld will always cost 1 coin.
Yeah, it's like the Costco hot dogs,
It is
where
the
the
cost.
CEO is like, "If you ever change the price of that hot dog, I will fucking kill you."
Speaking of people dying and paying for their way into the underworld, these young children are not unprepared, as Percy says, "Oh, but we have coins," and sets 3 golden drachmas on the desk. And this is the moment where there's this brief pause where he's like, "Ooh, coins." And then he
Mhm,
thinks, "Here now, you couldn't read my name. Are you dyslexic, lad?" And I loved
mhm.
this. "No, I'm dead."
Yeah, I do love how his fingers are hovering over the coins greedily, like over a box of donuts. But here's where I also appreciate that he's like, hold on. He's smart, right? He's the ferryman for a reason. He's like, something's a little off here. And I need Grover to take notes on what he does next. All right.
Yep.
Percy says, nope, I'm dead. And Charon doesn't say, oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense, actually. He leans forward and he takes a sniff. And he just immediately is like, you're not dead. I should have known. You're a godling. He remembered the rules of the world. Come on, Grover. Get with it's not that hard. He just did it.
So simple and yet so hard, apparently. Not for Charon, though. Percy insists, "We have to get to the underworld." And Charon says, "Nope, leave while you can. I'll just take these and forget I saw you." And before we acknowledge that Percy very quickly snatches back those coins and the clever interaction that follows, I just love that again somebody's like, "You guys, you don't want to be a part of this. Go home. I'll cut you
Mhm.
some slack."
Yeah.
They've been offered to be turned into dolphins, killed, incinerated,
Yep.
turned to
Atomized.
stone, and now here we are with, "Man, just go home. Just
Yeah.
leave."
He's got to be thinking like you do not understand the abysmal success rate of what you're trying to do. Like I know you think you're them. You're not. You're not them. All
You're
right?
not that guy.
Mhm.
You're not Heracles.
Although, according to you, Connor, Percy actually takes a lot from the trials and labors of Heracles.
This is so true. But
Mhm,
Charon
mhm.
doesn't know that. He's not the
He
fate.
doesn't.
He can only see what Percy's done, not what he's going to do. And so
That's
far,
true.
Percy has committed a few crimes, and that's about it.
It's a few. More than a few at this point. He's got quite the rap sheet. Percy is great at wheeling and dealing. I'll give him that. He says, "No, no, 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 hold on. No service, no tip." Takes the coins back. And then he does a money spread. He starts going band for band with Charon. He pulls out this big ass bag from Krusty's, all these drachmas. He's dumping his fist in, letting them spill out. And now Charon he's not frustrated anymore. Now he's like purring. He's getting into it. It's honestly a little inappropriate. He's might be getting a little too excited.
I did love that this whole interaction just screams Percy is a charisma character.
Yes.
The way he carefully places one coin after the other onto the table
Mhm.
as he's talking. You deserve better. A little appreciation. Good pay. So by the time he hits him with the, you know, I could mention a pay raise while I'm talking to Hades. Charon is at this point going, well, if you die, it's not my problem. I could use
Yep.
that raise.
He's got money on his mind. He's like, "You know what? Fuck it.
I
You
mean,
raise a several very good points right now, Percy, and they're all on the counter."
hard to argue with. This man has not gotten a raise in 3,000 years.
Mhm.
That's rough. Okay. I
Yeah.
complain about not getting raises that keep up with inflation. Literally nothing. Inflation has eaten this man alive. How does he afford anything? Wh- Why do you think he doesn't live on Olympus? He's literally working to death.
Yeah, he's a wage slave.
Sucks that
Mhm.
he's living the immortal life of a god and he's still stuck in capitalist hell,
Yeah.
literally.
Uh-huh. It's its own type of damnation, but that's why he's very specific. You don't touch the music. No causing any problems. And he says, "You know what? Fuck it. Come on, you crazy kids. Come on into this elevator. Yeah, I'll let you guys through." And this is again another one of those really cool scenarios where we see the modern merge with the mythological before it just turned totally into the good old fashioned visage of traversing the River Styx into the underworld.
This was great. I did really enjoy the smooth transition where Percy blinks
Mm.
and suddenly they're on the River Styx instead of in the elevator still. Before we get to that, there's a single line from Charon that I do think summarizes his whole deal. He raises an eyebrow after Annabeth says, "Oh, that's fair." And he says,
Mhm.
"Whoever said death was fair?" It's just good
Yeah.
character. It's just good character writing.
Mhm. And it also is followed up with something I can't believe I skipped over this. I highlighted it because I thought it was very funny. Where he says, "Yeah, who said death was fair? Wait until it's your turn. You'll die soon enough where you're going." Percy says, "We'll get out alive." And all he says in response is, "Ah, period." Not exclamation point, just a statement of that's funny. Ah.
But with that, the elevator shifts, and now Charon's creamy Italian suit had been replaced by a long black robe. His tortoiseshell glasses were gone. Where his eyes should have been were empty sockets, like Ares'
Mhm.
eyes, except Charon's were totally dark, full of night and death and despair.
Yeah.
That is one hell of a description.
It is. And it's followed up by Percy's looking at him. Charon can tell he's being eyed down right now. He goes, "Well?" Percy says, "Nothing." Then Percy's thinking to himself, "I thought he was grinning, but that wasn't it. The flesh of his face was becoming transparent, letting me see straight through to his skull." How can you not love this guy?
He's growing on me. I will say you're convincing me, but creepy.
Yeah. And that little shiver that you just did, I have to imagine that's what Grover's doing. He is specifically getting seasick. He's holding his
I think
stomach. He's like, this sucks."
I think Grover's having some worse problems than I am with a little heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, but this is another transition. We get people from their modern clothes into these gray robes. Charon is turning more and more ghastly. Percy blinks again, and now the elevator wasn't an elevator. You're standing on a wooden barge. And Charon has his oar, and he's pulling across a dark, oily river, swirling with bones, dead fish, and other stranger things. And I love this edition. Plastic dolls, crushed carnations, soggy diplomas with gilt edges. And this is I don't know if and we'll talk about this in the myths, I'm sure, but the idea of the River Styx also being a place of lost hope or desires or failed dreams. This is everybody tossing what was left of their humanity, all of their regrets before they properly enter into the afterlife. I think that's really neat.
I actually really loved this motif, and I liked it better and also worse after I did my research for the myths. And my
Mm,
thoughts here are better suited for this part of the chapter, so I'm going to throw them in here. In the original, very early mythology, it's not actually the River Styx that takes you into the underworld. It's the River Acheron. And these are separate rivers of the underworld, of Hades. The River Styx is the river of hatred. Doesn't really make sense for all this stuff to be in the river of hatred, but the River Acheron is the river of woe. And
mhm.
that's traditionally and originally the one that Charon would row you along as he took you into your final resting place. If you consider this as being the river of woe, people throwing in and polluting it with their lost hopes and dreams makes a lot of sense. Not as much
Mhm.
sense as if it's the river of hate, though, which does bother me a little bit.
I see. Well, I'm gonna choose to ignore that.
The motif really
How does
worked.
that sound?
Totally valid. No, that's the thing, though. I also loved this because as Annabeth is looking in, she says, "The river Styx, it's so," and Charon says, "polluted. For
Mhm.
thousands of years, you humans have been throwing everything in as you come across. Hopes, dreams, wishes that never came true." What a miserable, depressing view of the underworld, appropriately, that hits home hard. Because I feel like no matter who you are, no matter what you've accomplished, you always feel like there's something else. There's
Mhm.
always a what if? What if I'd done this instead of that? And the idea that this river holds on to all of humanity's countless dreams that never came to fruition, that's dark, man.
It
That's
is.
that's the most horrifying thing I think we will see in this chapter, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. Outside of the literal dead child, this one probably takes the cake in a larger existential way.
Yeah,
I
because to
also find
me
it interesting that in this book that has a very, we've talked about it, like pro nature environmentalist stance, Rick is saying that even in death, humans pollute. And honestly, I'm shocked that Grover didn't mention anything.
it is odd, but I think in a weird way, Grover, he's so much more concerned with the actual natural world that he wouldn't be concerned with the underworld. This is a place he'll never enter. He'll be
Mhm.
reborn as a plant,
That's
canonically.
true. Uh-huh. So what you're
So
telling me is that Grover's a NIMBY? He's a not in my backyard, only in my backyard person? That's only when he cares? When it affects him?
that's really funny when you put it that way, but yeah, I guess that's true. Pollution in the underworld doesn't count.
That's so good.
He's like, emotional pollution? That's not even real. I
Yeah,
don't
that doesn't
believe in
count.
emotional pollution. You know, speaking of emotional pollution, you and I should probably start believing in that. Because if you missed our announcement last episode, if we reach 100 followers by the end of book one, Jack and I are going to celebrate the momentous conclusion by watching the Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief movie, which I am very sure will pollute our emotions. But let's get back to the chapter.
Yeah, it's very apparent how scary and sorrowful that this little trek is. Percy never mentions he's worried about falling overboard or that it's a tumultuous ride. It actually seems like it's quite peaceful, but there's enough that is overwhelming to where he's starting to panic. He's realizing, "Oh, fuck, I am literally surrounded by dead people right now." And Annabeth, without saying anything, just grabs his hand. And I love that they don't use this as some sort of, like, romantic moment. I feel like it would cheapen the situation a bit.
Hmm.
Percy outright says, "Under normal circumstances, I'd be embarrassed by this. But right now, I understand exactly how she feels. This is reassurance that somebody else is alive on this boat."
Fuck Grover, I guess.
True. But also, oh my god, one of my favorite little lines, and this is where I literally wrote, "You can tell Rick is having a blast writing this." Percy's thinking, "I found myself muttering a prayer, though I wasn't quite sure who I was praying to. Down here, only one God mattered, and he was the one I had come to confront."
Those 2 paragraphs back to back went hard. I'm glad you
So
caught
good.
those 2, because that I was like, there's some strong emphasis here. This
Yeah.
I mean, that sums up the whole experience. You could leave out the rest of this, and you would still get how they were feeling on this boat ride. So much of the emotional lifting, I really do think is done by that these 2 human children who are not dead, feeling so alone in the face of this vast nothingness.
Yes. The majority of this one page, the bulk of the paragraphs are just dread.
Yeah.
That is followed by it's talking about the underworld being this dark, craggy rock and black volcanic sand stretching inland for a few hundred yards at the base of a high stone wall, marching off in either direction as far as the eye can see. And there's a sound just looming in the distance, echoing the howl of a large animal. And Charon, being a little shithead, says, "Old Three Face is hungry." Bad luck for you, godlings. And his smile's turning skeletal in the greenish light. And this is where we get it's just a very somber moment where the boat slides onto the black sand and the dead begin to disembark. There's a woman holding a little girl's hand, we could presume probably a mother and child, an old man and an old woman, likely a couple, hobbling along arm in arm, and then just by himself, a boy no older than Percy, shuffling silently along in his gray robe. It's dark and melancholic. There is no joke there.
And you wonder why I was like, "Ah, I don't know how I feel about this one."
That's what makes it so good. It's like, "Rick, more of this.
It
More
is what
scare the kids.
it
Scare the
is what makes it
children."
good. I'll give you that. It is effective, clear writing that drives its point home incredibly
Mhm.
solidly.
Right before that, though, I do wanna mention, this is a little silly. Charon he's heading back to the waiting room, and it's Percy noted that it sounds like he's humming a Barry Manilow song, and I looked up, I was like, "Is there, like, a Barry Manilow funeral song that usually is played?" Apparently, Barry Manilow has a lot of songs that are used at funerals. I was not aware of that. There are, like, top 10 lists for specifically that.
Are there really? That's
Yes!
fantastic.
I
There was so
know!
much myth stuff going on in this chapter that I was really focused on that. I never would have thought to look up if Barry Manilow had a sad enough song for funerals. That's fantastic.
It's
Props, Rick.
where our priorities differ. You focus on the stuff that matters, I focus on Barry Manilow, alright?
And then
Mhm,
there's this break. And this is where we start to transition again. We've had the elevator to kind of smoothly transition us from this modern interpretation of Greek mythology back into a really dreadfully archaic view of death and what happens. And then Percy says, I'm not sure what I was expecting. Pearly gates or a big black portcullis or something. But the entrance to the underworld looked like a cross between airport security and the Jersey Turnpike, which that's a description and it
mhm.
feels horrifyingly accurate for what death would actually look like.
Yeah,
But damn, that is a really bleak outlook that, like, yeah, damnation looks like TSA on
it's
steroids.
TSA and gridlock.
Ugh, awful.
Mhm. I do like, though, that going with this joke of, "Oh, it's like the Jersey Turnpike." There's 3 different lines, but one of them is marked "Easy Death," the letters E, Z, and then death, which is like, an easy pass joke, which I would contest he didn't have to change the name. Maybe there's, like, copyright issues with that, but it could still just be easy pass. You're passing the easy way.
Oh, that's because this is actually from the original mythology. Yeah, we actually invented the easy pass based on easy death.
I see.
It's from Heracles' account.
The more you know.
Hopefully that all comes off with the appropriate level of sarcasm.
Oh, what? I thought you were being for real right now, Connor. What the hell? How unreliable of you.
I know, I'm supposed to be the educational one.
I was gonna say, you're the lore master. I'm the one that dicks around and lies.
Alright, speaking of dicking around and lying, they get up to the separate entrances, right? And each entrance had a pass-through metal detector with security cameras mounted on top. Beyond this were toll booths manned by black-robed ghouls, like Charon. And so here's what I'm thinking. Hades has all these other goons? And he's still making Charon do all the work?
I think it's performance punishment.
That's
Charon is
cruel.
simply too good at his job.
I think you're right. I think it's cruel and unusual. Or it's a deliberate bottleneck to slow the flow of spirits into the underworld because Hades already is running too low on resources. They're running out of space. They have a housing crisis. It's not good.
That's great. So the underworld is gridlock, TSA, and there's a housing crisis. That's awesome.
Doesn't death seem really cool now?
It seems great. It's just more of the same.
And of course, on top of all of this, there's the howling of the hungry animal getting louder, but they can't see where it's coming from. And and I know I'm skipping a few things, we'll come back to those, but as they slowly get closer, they can just barely begin to see a transparent form coming into visage. And by the time they're able to see it, Annabeth ponders a guess that she thinks that they're getting closer to death. And that's why they can now see Cerberus. Also, a brief note, I'm going to keep saying Cerberus because it's how I've been saying it for ages. Technically, it's Cerberus, and when we get to the myth section, I'm going to switch back to Cerberus or Kerberos. But for the sake of the chapter and my sanity, I'm going to go with Cerberus.
I am also gonna say Cerberus, because that's all I've called him my entire life, and I refuse to change my habits.
So valid. Anyhow, I skipped a few things. Notably, that they're talking about, oh yeah, the easy death line must take you straight to the asphodel fields. No contest because you don't want to risk judgment. There's a court for dead people? Yeah, 3 judges. They switch around who sits on the bench. King Minos, Thomas Jefferson, William Shakespeare. And my thought, how the fuck did you pick these guys?
Yeah,
King
okay,
Minos,
I'm glad you called that out too.
King Minos, largely a dickhead in myths.
Uh-huh.
Regarded as a good king somehow, but also kind of an idiot. Thomas
Mhm.
Jefferson, known racist.
Yeah,
Sure, he
yeah, he
wrote
was
one important document, but like, damn.
yeah, uh-huh.
I mean, that's American history. That's more your wheelhouse than mine, but
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. Not a great dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then I'll give you this one. I have no dirt on Shakespeare.
Each of these 3 crazy choices. I'm glad you pointed out the King Minos thing, 'cause I was like, "Yeah, wasn't that guy a dickhead?"
Yes,
Thomas Jefferson, yes, also not great. I understand there's the thoughts of, "Oh, you can't be anachronistic with applying modern day morals to people from a different time." Here's the thing. He kept a lot of slaves and he did horrible things to a lot of slaves. And there are multiple texts of him actually talking about how he knew slavery was wrong and just continued to do it because it
just
made him a
didn't
shit ton of
care.
money. It's really cool. He's like, "Yeah, they're awesome and they're great for sleeping with and also make me a lot of money, but yeah, we probably shouldn't do this anymore." I'm not gonna stop though.
And that guy's on the judgment of death. I hope you lived a good life. This guy's going to be
Yeah,
your fucking judge.
that's exactly right.
I just went and Googled it. Gandhi died in 1948. We're picking Thomas Jefferson over fucking Gandhi?
Yeah.
All right,
Well, they
cool.
rotate. You know, maybe he's on the council. Maybe this is just like, oh, we're really rocking with the B team right now.
That's it. That was concerning. But at the very least, there does appear to be some people getting what they deserve because they describe the pastor of a megachurch who got, quote, his Lamborghini for the Lord, which in a police chase, he drove off a cliff and died.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Rick is really based in this section. Just a crazy, crazy choice for like, yeah, this is an example of somebody that's gonna be damned. A televangelist. And hey, I'm hard pressed to disagree with that, but like, wow. Good to know that it was still an issue in 2005, you know?
Oh my god, yeah. I'm with you. All for it. Way to go, Rick. He just put it
Mhm.
right out there and said, this is the example of human film. On top of that, I do like that he lumped in people who like sports cars. I like to think that that's a subtle nod so that you know where Gabe is going.
Yeah, it definitely isn't the abuse or manipulation or anything like that. It's the car. That's what did Gabe in. But I also like how they're talking about the different levels of the underworld and the different places you can go. And they say Fields of Elysium, that's for if you're like crazy. But you could also do the easy death route and go to the Asphodel Fields. And Annabeth describes it as most people, well, they just lived. Nothing special, good or bad. And when you're just a regular person, you get to stand in a wheat field in Kansas forever. So, that's great.
I reiterate, real awesome picture you're painting of dying here, not horrifying at all.
Yeah. Yep. It's nothing but despair and dread, and even if you're just a regular person, it's gonna fucking suck for you for the rest of eternity.
It's emptiness. Isn't that neat?
Mhm, mhm.
Well,
Emptiness
and
that
once
you're
you
cognizant for, too. You're
Nope.
just stuck in limbo forever. You
Yeah,
thought you got out of limbo in the waiting room. No, 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 no! You were in the line for limbo.
absolutely brutal. Well, and later in the Heroes of Olympus series, when we get some backstory and, like, flashbacks for Hazel, we'll learn that people in the fields of Asphodel get their memory wiped, so they wander around knowing nothing, having nothing, or no one, and just existing in this permanent state of amnesiac, endless nothing, limbo. It
And
gives me the creeps.
that's literally both the standard deviation of the bell curve. That's the majority of people.
Yeah, I hate that. That terrifies me. So that's fun. They
Yeah.
whisk off the televangelist to take
Uh-huh.
him to the fields of punishment where the fear kindly ones, because names have power,
Names matter. Names have
names
power, names
matter,
matter, Connor.
where the kindly ones will set up an eternal torture for him.
Here's another thing. On top of being incredibly based, Rick is also very smart by making this guy a preacher, because Percy gets to ask a very good question.
He does.
Hey, so if this guy's a preacher and he believes in like a different hell, and Grover responds with a shrug, it's like, yeah, who says he's seeing this place the way we're seeing it? Humans see what they want to see. You're very stubborn or yeah, persistent that way. And I think that's a neat compromise.
I do think that's a good compromise. That allows Rick to toe the line without crossing it.
Yes.
Well done, Rick. You get it. And this is where they stand and they see 50 feet in front of them an enormous, shadowy monster. It blended with whatever was behind it. Only its eyes and teeth looked solid, and it was staring straight at me. Percy's jaw hangs open, and all he can think to say is, "He's a Rottweiler."
Which is interesting. This is another one of those situations, and it's happened a few times in the book where I have a thought immediately after reading something, and it is mentioned in the next line. It's like, wait, a Rottweiler? I thought he was a big black mastiff. And that is exactly what Percy says. I'd always imagined Cerberus as a big black mastiff, but he's obviously a purebred Rottweiler,
You know
except for the
what's
fact that he's twice the size of a woolly mammoth.
Yeah. You know what's actually kind of fun about that, though? And I wonder if this was intentional on Rick's part, and I didn't deep dive into this part of Cerberus for my mythology breakdown, but in most ancient depictions and art, Cerberus actually is depicted as the most popular breed of very large mastiff that a lot of Greeks had as a working dog.
Mhm.
That's it. So mastiff probably would have been more accurate, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my thought was Rick changed it to Rottweiler just because that's maybe more of a ubiquitous, like, American interpretation of a guard dog.
That would follow with the lore, right? We've learned that the gods change their appearance to follow what humanity thinks of them. If you think about, like, the show, Zeus is in the very fancy suit. I mean, obviously in the novels as well, he's in the suit, and Poseidon wears the Hawaiian shirt because he's the ocean guy. So their appearances change over time. It's not unreasonable to believe that Cerberus exists as whatever is the most colloquial, understandable, big, scary guard dog of the time,
Mhm. Yeah,
even if
calling
Rottweilers were the
Poseidon
tiny
the
beast.
ocean guy is insanely reductive. I'm not just gonna gloss over that.
You're killing my reputability.
You're doing that yourself, man. That's crazy. You're the one that's like, "Yeah, the River Styx, actually, it should have been this other river, and also, it's actually pronounced Kerberos." But yeah, that's the ocean guy. That's why he's got the Hawaiian shirt,
You get it? If I just said the ocean guy, you'd know who I meant.
and I also would have known what you meant with Cerberus. Yet here we
See?
are.
Valid, fair enough. But now they have a problem because
Yes.
they have to get past Cerberus. And he can smell the living.
Yeah.
That's one hell of a problem to have.
It is a problem. I also love how Cerberus is described as being kind of translucent, but becoming more in focus and corporeal as they approach. And Percy's like, "Why is that?" And Annabeth just says, "I think I'm afraid it's because we're getting closer to being dead."
Yup. And this is where we get to hear about the infamous plan.
That's
The
right.
Rover says,
Because
"That's okay.
uh-huh,
We have a plan." Annabeth
that's
says,
right.
"Right, a plan."
Mhm.
And what
And
is this plan?
what is this plan, Connor? What is it? You do the honors. What is their master plan to get past the guard dog of all the underworld?
Percy says, "I took a big stick out of my backpack.
Mhm.
A bedpost I'd broken off of Krusty's Safari Deluxe floor model. I held it up, tried to channel happy dog thoughts towards Cerberus, Alpo commercials, cute little puppies, fire hydrants. I tried to smile like I wasn't about to die. Hey, big fella, I bet they don't play with you much." The giant, looming, double woolly
Uh-huh.
mammoth-sized dog growls at him. "Yeah, good boy," I said weakly. I
Uh-huh.
waved the stick. The dog's middle head followed the movement. The other two heads trained their eyes on me. So the plan is working.
Mhm. Mhm. He has Cerberus's undivided attention. Still not sure if that's a good thing or not.
He says, "Fetch!" And he throws the stick into the gloom. A good solid throw. He heard it go, great onomatopoeia, kersploosh in the River
Mhm.
Styx. Cerberus glared at me, unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. So much for the plan.
Yeah, oops. All right.
I
Well,
loved that. I loved
it's
all of
so
that.
good. It's so good. I love the false bravado that Percy has with, "Hey, big fella. I bet they don't play with you much." And then again, this is where Rick just plays with the font and the formatting. It's just all capitals. Grr, growl. And immediately after, just good boy. I said weekly. It's so good. It's so good.
And then, of course, we get to the panic moment. Grover has a very solid point. Do we run now?
Uh-huh. Cerberus is now growling in a deeper kind of low hum guttural, and Grover is communicating with Cerberus, or at the very least can understand him. And Grover says, "Percy? Yeah. I just thought you'd want to know. Yeah. Cerberus? He's saying we've got 10 seconds to pray to the god of our choice. After that, well, he's hungry."
It is fantastic. It's perfect. It's really fun.
Uh-huh. And that's when Annabeth is like, "Wait, hold on." Light bulb goes off over her head. She starts rifling through her pack. And Percy's thinking, oh, fuck." Grover says, "5 seconds. Do we go? What do we do?" And then Annabeth, ever resourceful, properly a daughter of Athena, produces a red rubber ball the size of a grapefruit from Waterland, Denver, Colorado. And she very playfully, she shouts up, holds the ball up over her head like she's presenting. He says, "See the ball? You want the ball, Cerberus? Sit." And Cerberus looks stunned. He is shocked at the events that are currently unfolding as this small little blonde girl is giving him a command. And I love it. It's you can just imagine it. All three of his heads cocked sideways, six nostrils dilated. And Annabeth doubles down. Sit! And Percy's just, I'm sure, not breathing right now, totally tense. He says, "I'm sure that at any moment she'd become the world's largest milk bone dog biscuit." Instead, Cerberus licks his three set of lips, shifted on his haunches, and sat, immediately crushing a dozen spirits who'd been passing underneath him in the easy death line.
When you're missing the best part of that description, which is the spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated, like the air let out of tires.
Yeah, and we don't learn what happens with them. I
Nope,
think they just cease to be, which, based on where they were going, might be the best case scenario for them.
I guess, man. I you know, at first I was a little frustrated at how easy this is. If dog no like stick, why dog like ball? And then I thought to myself, well, they probably don't get a lot of bouncy balls in the underworld.
Uh-huh.
How many
Yeah.
spirits are like, "Ah, I'm dead. Hold on. Bury me with my favorite ball," which is also conveniently Cerberus sized. There's gotta be, like, one yoga instructor who died and brought their favorite yoga ball,
Ball with them.
and they're Cerberus's favorite dead soul.
Yeah. But Annabeth is becoming Cerberus's favorite alive soul.
True.
She throws the ball. He catches it in his middle mouth. It is barely big enough for him to chew. And the other heads, I love this. It's such a fun characterization. They start snapping at the middle. It's like they're 3 different dogs, but they're all the same dog. And I love that Annabeth of the group is somehow the one to win this giant hellhound, multi-headed hellhound over. And
To
she's
be the
just
dog
rocking with
person.
it.
Yeah?
Yeah. He gives the ball back and she says, "Good boy." She gives some positive affirmation and then immediately turns back to Percy and Grover's like, "You gotta go now. Easy death line. It's faster."
Yup.
As Annabeth is like, "Go." And Cerberus starts growling. She says, "You're gonna stay if you want the ball." And Cerberus, he really wants that ball. So he stays. And Percy's kind of like, "I don't know. Do I go? Do I not?" And she says, You go right now. I will be okay." And so he and Grover walk through the monster's legs. And I love it says, Percy's thinking, "Please, Annabeth, I prayed. Don't tell him to sit again," as they're walking through his legs. And so they walk past. Cerberus, apparently from the back, is still terrifying. You hear Annabeth in the distance saying, "Good dog." She's holding up the tattered red ball. And this is when she realizes, all right, I officially have nothing to reward him with anymore. He has destroyed the only ball I had. I gotta, like, go now. So that's when she throws it one more time. It's gonna be the last time. He snatches it up and she dips underneath him and joins them past there's a metal detector that they have to go through. And this is where Percy's like, "Oh my god, how did you know how to do all this stuff?" And she says, "Obedience school." This is we learn her dad had a Doberman and they had to train it. And Grover says, "No time for that. I do not care. We gotta go."
He's got his eyes on the prize. I'm glad at least one of them does. And
Yeah.
I will mention with this, I like that whatever obedience school they went to was an ethical dog training school that taught positive reinforcement. Want dog to do good thing? Give it a good reward. That's what I love to hear. I like that. Good on you, Rick, for advocating for positive dog training methodologies.
Yeah. And this is where we see Annabeth has made some sort of connection with Cerberus, calling him good boy. Says, "All right, I'll bring you another ball soon. You want that?" And Cerberus, he's whimpering. He's so sad. He's waiting for another ball. Annabeth says, "Oh, I'll visit you. I promise." Her voice is breaking. And then they go through the metal detector, which immediately starts setting off alarms and flashing red lights, and it starts squealing, "Unauthorized possessions, magic detected." And then Cerberus is like, "Oh, fuck, wait, my job. Uh-oh, I've been tricked, bamboozled."
I did find it interesting that it would be a rule in the underworld that you can't bring magic items in. Like, I guess it makes sense, but also I feel like most heroes and demigods, if they had a magic item, would be buried with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, this is not going to the Elysian Fields. This is going to the Asphodel Fields, where all
Do
the
you think
the normies go.
that makes sense? I guess if you're a hero and you go get judged, you get to keep your cool hero items in
Yeah,
the Fields of Elysium. I guess that makes sense. That works in my head canon. They run through, they are just packed with magic items between the 3 of them, or at least
yeah.
3 magic items.
Oh, they're just a walking, talking set of loot drops. It's
Actually,
incredible the shit they've got on them.
if they've got 4, because 'cause they've got the Master Bolt on them.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Even I forgot. Ares fooled me too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to forget about that. It's a good plan they've got.
It's a good plan they've got.
And they go
Actually, they
through.
don't think it's
Yep.
a good plan they've got. As Grover says, "We've learned that your plans really, really bite."
God, yeah, this I did groan.
Yeah, that
This
was
fucking
grown
back and
worthy.
forth. Grover murmurs, "Well, Percy, what have we learned today?" Percy goes, "That three-headed dogs prefer red rubber balls over sticks." "No, we've learned that your plans really, really bite." Look at the camera, roll credits. The
That's some
fucking
Saturday
vomit.
morning cartoon shit.
God. I know, and the chapter was doing so well until that point. It's like, "That's what we're ending on, Rick? That's it?"
Yep. Basically, Annabeth wipes a
Yeah.
tear from her cheek as she listens to the mournful keening of Cerberus in the distance, longing for his new friend. I'm looking at my summary notes that I wrote down for the chapter, and the big things that I caught was that it was fun, suitably eerie for the land of the dead, and that Charon was spot on. So, I guess I agreed with everything that you said. I just don't think that I got up to the heights that you did, but I don't disagree. It's a good chapter. It moves swiftly enough too, which is nice.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like we get through a lot, and my only complaint, I guess, with this chapter is more just an issue with the book. I wish this chapter happened sooner.
I can give you that. I think that could be part of where I'm coming from, because really, after you've done the whole for Krusty's bit, you've had
Yeah.
to go all the way through the Lotus Casino and Vegas and Santa Monica, and by this point, you're just like, oh my god, man, can we get there yet?
Yeah, well, that's exactly how I felt last chapter. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck about this bed place. I really don't. I just wanna get to the underworld, and now it's like, "Oh, great, we're actually making progress to this point." There are substantive steps being taken. We're seeing more of what the underworld is actually like. We're not just hearing about it. We're meeting these new characters that are mythologically based from the underworld and seeing these different processes. I loved it. So it sounds like I may have shifted your opinion on this chapter a little bit. A
you
little bit?
definitely have. More
Okay.
than a little bit, I think. I think I was really ranking it in that this is a move from point A to point B chapter, and I don't think I'd given it the credit because I even said, of the point A to point B chapters, this is the best one we've had so far.
Mhm.
I don't think I gave it its fair shake when I was just like, oh, it's just another transition chapter. When you really look at it and you take time with it, it's really fun and it excels at what it's supposed to do in a way that a lot of the other ones don't.
Yeah.
But as we are waiting here in the easy death line, do you want to talk some myths?
Yeah, we got nothing better to do.
Just before we move on, though, we love making this show, and we're always looking for ways for it to reach new audiences. The best way for us to do that is with your help.
If you've listened this far, you may as well follow us.
Leave a comment, leave a review, and most importantly, share with your friends. We have 4 myths to talk about today. We will start, I think, with Charon, because he's the first guy we see. So, Charon, we've now honestly established a lot of the most important lore from this book already. Normally, with a lot of these godly figures, I like to start with their parentage because I think that's a good idea of where they come from, right? For example, the obvious one is Asclepius, son of Apollo. Makes sense. Medicine god makes medicine god. Well, when it comes to Charon, we don't have an answer. It's actually been lost to time. So there are no ancient sources, not one, that tells us who Charon's parents were. Which, if you look at it from a certain sense, I kind of really like because it
Mhm.
means that it's just that death must manifest. You will die. It is inevitable. It's not a thing that comes from anything else. It's just, it is. Now, that fun little motif that I was just playing with, some Italian guy in 1360 specifically did not like that. So, an Italian Renaissance writer named Giovanni Boccaccio wrote that
Very
Erebus,
Italian Renaissance name.
yeah, he wrote that Erebus and Nyx were the parents of Charon. So that's darkness and night. Makes sense. Erebos was a primary consort of Nyx, and they had other children with similar motifs. So it fits in that Charon would be in there. But this is basically just fan fiction. I mean, at that point, it is almost 2000, if not exactly 2000 years from when a lot of the original stories were written down in things like the Theogony. and the works of Homer. So you can consider Giovanni Boccaccio's writings about the same level of canonicity as whatever the fuck Amazon is doing with Tolkien lore right now.
Mhm.
Funny enough,
Understood.
in Percy Jackson lore, Charon is actually a child of just Nyx, not of Erebus. Nyx just created him through parthenogenesis.
Oh,
Yeah, she just manifested the ferryman of the dead, which I thought was
like,
pretty cool.
just 'cause? Or is
Yeah,
she like, "We need this."
I really didn't read into it that much because I was like, "Oh, that's neat," but I don't care because it's not part of real mythology, apparently.
That's honestly so fair.
So where I did go next was, can I find the earliest reference of Charon and work from there? So the first thing that is written down is from the 6th century BC. Unfortunately, it's a very fragmented epic poem called Minyas, and the epic in its full form has been lost to time. However, some of the surviving fragments appear to include the story of Theseus and Pirithous' catabasis. You remember those guys?
I do.
Well, they see Charon on their trip to the underworld. And Theseus, in this same fragmented epic, gets to see our other friend from this chapter, Cerberus, on his way out of the underworld. Pirithous doesn't, though. Whoops. You get what you deserve in the underworld. Sorry, friend. So, Charon, interestingly, being so heavily associated with the process of death, though, doesn't appear in a lot of stories outside of basically existing in catabasises and as someone that you see when you go to the underworld. However, we have a lot of art of the guy, specifically on funerary vases, because duh, but also other things surrounding that. And with that, we have quite a few that survive from around the same time as our first literary reference in the 6th century BC, going forward into the 5th century BC, which give us a pretty clear picture of what people thought Charon looked like. And I resisted the urge to mention it during the chapter, but Charon is generally depicted as a bearded man in a little funny hat. And I'm kind of upset
Uh-huh.
that in his authentic Greek version, he's in his creepy robes instead of his funny little hat, because I like his funny little hat.
Uh-huh.
It's a
Can you
big
please describe the funny little hat? Because 'Cause I'm very curious
it
now.
is a big conical hat, so it's just a cone on his head like some sort of garden
Like a
gnome.
dunce cap?
Yeah! It's a little rounded off at the top, so it actually looks more like the tip of a condom, which is even funnier. But, like,
He really is a dickhead.
specifically
That's great.
yes, it specifically looks like if you pulled a really big condom on top of your head. That is
Oh,
what his
hell
hat
yeah.
looks like. He like I mentioned, he generally has a beard, and in a lot of earlier works, he's portrayed as uglier because I guess death was ugly and he's supposed to be this common boatman, and over time, his portrayal seems to soften, becoming a little less harsh and abrasive and more like a regular guy. But I really wish that Rick had gone with, yeah, and as the elevator descends and he starts pulling the boat along the river, you look over and there's an ugly bearded old guy with a condom on his head.
Oh my god. That's so good. Uh, that would explain why he likes the suit so much. He's like, "Dude, if you had to see my usual uniform, you'd wanna dress up. Like,
Yeah.
I look like an idiot most of the time."
So instead, he goes for much cleaner suits in the Percy Jackson universe. But I gotta say, I wish this was the case. In a lot of those same depictions and those funerary vases that we do have, they also often depict Hermes delivering the souls to Charon because Hermes was a psychopomp. And so the journey of the dead would be that Hermes would take you to Charon, navigating your mortal soul to the underworld's mouth, basically. And then Charon would get you the rest of the way there, over the bridge. Speaking of the dead's journey, we also noticed that Charon has a particular hankering for payment, and that is also rooted in mythological origin. Unsurprisingly, this is a nice, easy one to play with. So, starting around the 5th century, we start to have archaeological record of coins being found in Greek burial sites. This notably, is actually after the first mention of Charon in the 6th century BC. This lines up with the mention of the practice only appearing in later works, but not in earlier works. The motif of paying the ferryman, that is. We'll get to that later when we talk about some of the literature in a moment. But what's really cool about this is that I mentioned this process, this practice of putting coins in graves started around the 5th century. That's because that's when Greece was monetized. They started using coins, and after they started using coins, that's obviously when you could start placing them in with your dead. And so this naturally arose over time that people were like, oh, we have these new things. They are valuable. Put them with the dead. They should take them
Hmm.
with them. What's perhaps a little less interesting is that this practice never seems to have been as present as we think. It was very society to society dependent. So, going across most ancient Greek burial sites, according to estimates from archaeologists, coins actually only appear in any sort of form or placement in around 5 to 10% of ancient Greek burial sites. However, as you get to later Roman cemeteries, as many as half of graves are found with coins in them. So the presence starts pretty unpopular, but by the time of the Romans, this becomes more and more popular. Now, that's not to say it wasn't a practice. In the archaeological dig site that was the ancient city of Olynthus, which reached its height around the mid 5th century, many grave sites were found with coins present, and in many cases, a single bronze coin was positioned in the mouth or the skull of the skeleton. And in Athens, tombs from the Hellenistic period, which is around the 4th century, many of those tombs also had the dead with either a single bronze coin in their mouth or, in fewer instances, in their hand or simply with the body. But it does indicate that in some early Greek cultures, it was practiced to put a coin in the mouth for the dead so that they would have something to pay Charon with. It's kind of cool.
That
So the
is neat.
dead,
Is the reason that they did the mouth so that, like, it wouldn't get taken, wouldn't be stolen?
I didn't find anything to specifically say why. So there's a lot of theories, and I wanted to stray away from the theories because this is apparently an archaeologically and anthropologically contested thing as to how popular this was and what was the reasoning.
Mhm.
So the leading theories are to prevent theft, or that if you put it in their mouth, then as their body would be forced to take the coin with them, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Like if you just put it in
gotcha.
their palm, it's not in their body and it might not be there. Or if you just toss it in
Right.
the grave with them, they're not going to get to keep what's in the grave. But if you put it in their mouth, it's going to go with them. Now, again,
Mm.
that's a theory. Preventing grave robbers is another theory. I'm not going to weigh in on what's correct or not correct. I'm not a historian, archaeologist, or anthropologist.
That's, very prudent of you.
So that is the process of dying and your funerary rites. I mentioned that we have a lot of art depicting Hermes leading the souls of the dead to Charon. It is after Hermes leads them there that we get the paying of the fare. And the first mention we get of paying a fare to Charon comes to us from a play called Frogs by Aristophanes,
Hell
during
yeah.
which Heracles tells Dionysus that the fare to be rowed to the underworld is 2 obols, 2 bronze coins, which I just want to put out there is really funny considering most of these grave sites have 1 coin in the mouth. So everyone's arriving and going, wait, fuck, this isn't enough? No.
Oh, fuck, oh, no.
Because according to Virgil's Aeneid, as I referenced earlier, if you couldn't pay your fee, you have to wait 100 years before Charon will take you,
Mm.
which I might remind you is way more generous than, I don't know, fuck you. You stay here until I feel like it, I guess, as we get into this book.
Yeah.
So you go, you arrive at the boat, you pay your fee, and then you set off for the underworld. There, you would board the boat that would take you along the river Acheron. Sometimes it's not a river, it's a lake. Sometimes it's a river and a lake. Either way, it all kind of remains the same. you are led to Hades, the land of the dead. And in Greek mythology, as I mentioned, the Acheron was the river of woe. Notably, not the Styx that you would see here in Percy Jackson, but the reason that this mix up actually happens is because by the time of later Roman writers, they had begun assigning this role to the River Styx, since the River Styx was like the heart river of the underworld. All the other rivers feed into the Styx. So Ovid notably used the River Styx in place of the River Acheron. Or Statius, a Roman poet, wrote in his epic Thebaid in the 1st century AD, "Let the ferryman row back across the Styx with groaning bark." So, Styx, Acheron, it really depends on what time period you lived in. I think, therefore, the more authentically Greek thing, especially knowing where the novels go, would be to have gone with Acheron. And if you're the Roman version of events, there you see the Styx. But Rick probably wasn't thinking about the fact that he was going to be writing an entire other series when he was writing the literal first novel.
Right. Right.
And that's Charon. Oh, one other detail that I forgot because I was so focused on his funny hat. He is also frequently depicted in regard to his outfit and his boat with the color red. So his tunic is often red, as is his boat. That's it. He likes the color red, apparently.
I see. Very sanguine.
Mm-hmm. It does have a certain blood motif to it. But that is a little brief introduction to Charon, the ferryman.
Love it.
Now, because we did navigate along the River Styx, I did take it upon myself to at least get us a little bit of information on the Styx. So let's talk the River Styx. First thing I'll put out here is that we're going to have a really good time to talk about the most important myth associated with the River Styx, which is the Curse of Achilles. That'll be in Book 5. Today, I've just got a brief excerpt from Hesiod's Theogony because it does a good job of establishing what the River Styx was like. That cold water of the River Styx that drizzles down from a steep, sky-climbing cliffside. And it is one horn of the Okeanos stream, and travels off that holy river a great course through night's blackness under the wide-wade earth. And this water is a 10th part of all. For in 9 loops of silver swirling waters around the earth and the sea's wide ridges, he tumbles into salt water. But this stream, greatly vexing the gods, runs off the precipice, the imperishable, primeval water of the Styx, and it jets down through the jagged country. So
Damn.
that's kind of
Snaps and
neat.
claps. That is pretty
Yeah,
neat.
man. Hesiod didn't mess around. The big details that we could pull from this, but also from other writings, is that generally speaking, the Styx was described as the longest of the rivers of the underworld, the most important, that it originated from Oceanus would be how you would see it if you were pronouncing it in modern English, or Okeanos, if you were looking at it in probably a closer to correct pronunciation, and that it is cold. It is cold water. Notably as well, I mentioned that the River Styx is the river of hatred among the underworld rivers, and it actually shares the etymology for the word hatred. So Styx and hatred come from the same root. Neat. Next, we're going to move from one place to another, one location. Because as the group arrives in the underworld, they see signs that say now entering Erebus. So I was like, well, that's odd. Erebus is a weird thing to call the underworld, which usually goes by the land of the dead, the underworld, or Hades. So what is Erebus? Especially because we just talked about it, and at least one Renaissance Italian thought that Erebus was a person that could have children. And he's right. What is then the place Erebus? So the first reference we have of both the name of a place and actually the cosmological primordial god comes from around the 8th or 7th century BC when Hesiod wrote the Theogony. As, of course, we often reference the Theogony, it's kind of a basis for a lot of this stuff. But these passages are pretty straightforward. From chaos came forth Erebus and black Nyx. But of Nyx were born Aether and Hemera, whom she conceived bore from union in love with Erebus. So, this is where we get a little bit of information that would confirm our earlier Italian friend's theory that if Charon were a child of Nyx or Erebos, he would be a child of Nyx and Erebos, as the two of them did share a number of children. It is later in the theogony, however, that we can start to see references to Erebos the place, such as in this passage, which describes Zeus defeating the Titan Menoetius, I don't know, where it says,
Good try, good attempt.
I appreciate it, where it says, Zeus struck him with a lurid thunderbolt and sent him down to Erebos. Or, a little after that, describing Zeus calling the 100-handed ones up from beneath the earth, the Hetoncaries whom Zeus brought up to the light from Erebos beneath the earth. And since we're currently focused on Erebos, the place, I'll mention a few other places that Erebus has been referenced. For example, in the Odyssey, the souls of the dead are described as gathering from out of Erebus. In the Homeric hymn to Demeter, which refers to the underworld, it refers to the underworld as Erebus rather than Hades. Notably, this is an older work, so that would actually kind of make sense given if you listen to our last episode where we talk about the naming convention of Hades. This would have been before Hades became much more associated with the place and less with the deity. So they would have been using a different word for the underworld, here Erebus. In Euripides' play Orestes, it's just described as the home of Nyx. And in the works of later writers like Ovid, Ovid describes Proserpina, the Roman equivalent of Persephone, as the queen of Erebus, queen of the underworld. So here's where I think you get to the really interesting thing. Which place is Erebus specifically? Because it certainly could refer to the underworld itself. See Persephone being ruler of Erebus from Ovid, Persephone being queen of the underworld, that makes sense. Or in the Homeric hymn to Demeter, which I just referenced. Or it could just refer to underground. When Zeus brings the 100-handed ones to the surface in the theogony, he's not bringing them from the underworld. He's just bringing them from living beneath the earth, underground, in darkness. Erebus meaning darkness. And finally, in some cases, it literally did just mean darkness. I think there's an argument to be made that Nyx might have lived in the underworld, but it's just as reasonable to say that Nyx, night, just lives in Erebus, darkness. Night comes from darkness. It's a fairly reasonable thing to say.
You're kind of spitting right now, man.
Well, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead because that's all I've got for Erebus.
Okay, way to go out while you're on top.
I thought it was interesting, though. I thought it was fun. I didn't expect it to be this kind of natural evolution over time and as sort of a catch-all word. It comes from this very early period, which, as I mentioned, we didn't see reference to Hades being a place yet. And so Erebus became this catch-all term for the dark things that lurk in the night come from here.
Mm-hmm. No, it's surprisingly broad. I was not expecting that. I feel
Yeah,
like I've said it before, but dude, linguistics and language and word association, it's so rad.
it's really cool. And what I find particularly fun about that is in the context of the chapter, it means that all of these souls are just seeing as they're in this endless turmoil of waiting in one line to a next limbo after limbo after limbo. They just see a big sign that says, "Welcome to darkness."
Welcome to darkness. Yep.
Yeah. Isn't that horrifying?
Yeah. Nothing says abandon all hope, ye who enter, quite like that.
Yeah. And that brings us to Greek's official best boy, Cerberus. So, Cerberus actually has his earliest references in the works of Homer in the early 8th century. By the way, here early means the high 700s and late means the low 700s because we're counting down, not up, because we're in the BCs. Just to make sure everyone's on the same page, because that's relevant when we will, in a moment, be talking about Hesiod, who operated and wrote his stories in the late 8th century, the early 7th century, abouts. So, in the Homeric works, Homer never actually mentions Cerberus by name. He instead consistently refers to him as just the Hound of Hades. Take, for example, this line from Athena in the Iliad referencing the 12th labor of Heracles. When Heracles was sent down to Hades of the gates to hail back from Erebus the hound of the grisly death god. Erebus, again, here used in this very early work as darkness or just the underworld in general. There's also this line from the Odyssey when Odysseus is speaking with the dead and actually gets to speak with Heracles, where he says, "He once sent me even here to fetch away the hound of Hades, for he thought no task could be more fearsome for me than that." We see how that went for Eurystheus. See last episode to learn about that one. We'll also talk about it a little bit in a minute, but we did really hit on that one already. Then we have the works of Hesiod. And here, Hesiod is the guy who we can attribute. It's actually kind of rare that we can very definitively be like, this was probably the first place that somebody wrote it down. This is probably the first place that somebody wrote it down. In the Theogony, Hesiod describes the many children of Typhon and Echidna, including Cerberus, and he writes, Typhon was joined in love to her being Echidna, and next she bore the unspeakable, unmanageable Cerberus, the savage, the bronze-barking dog of Hades, 50-headed and powerful without pity. Sounds like they're introducing a wrestler.
I was literally just about to say, I love how you were putting on this WWE announcer voice.
It just, the way that there's one after another, he's like, this guy was like, I have so many adjectives to describe this dog. I gotta get through all of them. And you may have been too caught up in my WWE announcer voice to have realized, but 50 heads is way more than 3.
Yeah, I'm not a math guy, but even I picked up on that.
Don't worry, we're going to come back to that, but for right now, we're going to be taking a brief detour. So, the passage also gives us the definitive answer for the parentage of Cerberus, which is undisputed across basically all the ancient literature that I read in my research for this episode, which is rather interesting because Cerberus really does fit in quite well with the other brood of Typhon and Echidna. At risk of reading you too many lists, I'll keep it to just 3, but reminder that these are the same couple that produced the Chimera, the Lernaean Hydra, and Orthrus, another 2-headed dog. So they have a theme. They have
They were
kids and
just,
they've got too many heads.
pumping out D1 monsters, too.
I mean, Echidna is the mother of monsters, baby.
Yeah.
And Typhon's like the original big scary of Greek mythology.
I was
That
gonna say,
guy has,
he's a big guy.
oh yeah, legs made of like 1,000 writhing snakes. He's horrifying. So, from that point forward, though, Cerberus was named. And works from that point in history pretty much consistently refer to Cerberus by both his name as well as by his title, the Hound of Hades. So, let's go back and talk about that head thing. Hesiod specifically described Cerberus as 50-headed and powerful, without pity. So, we're starting with a lot of heads, too many heads. This is also a good point to interject that Hesiod also describes the duty of Cerberus as eating anyone who tries to leave the underworld, actually, not people who are trying to get in. You're allowed to die whenever you want. You just can't go live again after
Come on
you do.
in. Yeah,
Mhm.
you want to be here? Okay.
Actually, specifically, the passage reads, and before them being the halls of Hades and Persephone, a dreaded hound on watch, and who has no pity but a vile stratagem. As people go in, he fawns on all, with actions of his tail and both ears, but he will not let them go back out, lies in wait for them and eats them up when he catches any going back through the gates. Kind of fun. But back to heads. By the time of Roman poets and historians, Cerberus is well understood to have 3 heads. Ovid's Metamorphoses reads, Cerberus sprang at her with his 3 heads and gave 3 barks together. Pseudo-Hyginus, in his work Fabulae, in around the 2nd century AD, writes, Hercules had been sent for the 3-headed dog by King Eurystheus. And while most writers of the time felt it was good enough to just mention the 3 heads, our favorite fanfiction author decided to put his own little spin on things.
Is it
Pseudo-Apollodorus writes,
Pseudo-Apollodorus?
Yep. Apollinaris
Yeah!
in the 2nd century AD writes, Cerberus had 3 dog heads, a serpent for a tail, and along his back, the heads of all kind of snakes. He got really extra with it.
He did, and you also put on the WWE announcer voice again.
I did. And here's the real rug pull. Pseudo Apollodorus is the most correct.
Let's go. Our boy finally did something right.
He did, because of much of the various surviving pieces of pottery that depict the 12th labor of Heracles, and of course include Cerberus, tend to depict snakes along the back of Cerberus and a serpent for a tail, or a serpent's tail. A lot of them choose to do either the snakes on the back and the serpent's tail, or just the serpent's tail. Can go either ways. There are some that don't have it, but the majority actually do have the snakes. So, interestingly here, I think it means that it's worth mentioning that in all of these surviving depictions, it might be, and I'm putting my speculation hat on, that Cerberus only has 2 to 3 heads in all of these drawings because drawing 50 heads was too hard. And therefore, the artists were like, he
You
has
know what?
3. That gets the
We're
point
gonna show
across.
that he's got a couple, you know,
Yeah.
that'll kinda serve the purpose.
And perhaps the story of Cerberus having 3 heads as opposed to the 50-headed monster of the underworld is just that the stories followed the natural limitations of artists, which is kind of
That's
fun.
dope. I love that.
So, this brings us to our myth. And if you want the full version of the 12th labor of Heracles, please go check out last episode where I talked at length about Catabasis. I had a lot of fun with it. But to briefly summarize, in his 12th labor, Heracles, who is atoning for his sins, the Oracle of Delphi says, go obey your cousin. And his cousin has tried 11 other things to get Heracles killed, and none of them work. So he says, fine, go get angry, scary dog from Death Place. And Heracles goes and gets the dog. And when he brings it back to Eurystheus, he says, what the fuck, man? Get rid of this dog. You're free. You're fucking crazy, dude.
Uh-huh.
That's basically the whole story. I reiterate, the in-depth breakdown is last episode, or if you want to learn more about why the guard of the underworld is a dog, check out one of my personal favorites, which is my in-depth breakdown on the origins of hellhounds in episode 8. One last funny little detail. As early as the 6th century BC, writers had already started trying to rationalize Greek mythology. They were already saying, all right, we know that none of this is really real. There's no such thing as a 3-headed dog. So, what could have caused this? And their theories were pretty fun. They ranged from it was just a very venomous snake that killed everyone it bit, so it earned its name as the Hound of Hades. And Heracles clearly did exist, so his 12th task was just bringing back the snake because it was that
Mhm.
dangerous. Another theory was that it was just a dog from a town called Three Heads. Yes, actually.
Oh, that's great. I like that one. That's my favorite.
Yep. There's also the theory that it was just a regular dog with 2 pups that never left its side, giving it the appearance of 2 extra heads. And my personal favorite, which is actually a rationalization of the Catabasis of Theseus, in which Hades is just a regular king with a very big dog. And he has a daughter whose name is Kore, which is a version of Persephone. And all the suitors for Persephone had to fight the dog to prove that they were worthy of his daughter's hand in marriage. And in this version, because Theseus and Pirithous are still morons, Pirithous is fed to the dog for trying to steal the princess without going through the proper channels and fighting the dog. So he just tries to sneak in, take her out. Hades catches her, or rather, Hades has one of his guards catch her, and they just toss him in prison and let the dog go in and eat him.
Jeez.
Yeah. Heracles still shows up then later at the palace of Hades and is like, hey, can I have this prisoner? And that's how he frees Theseus in that version.
Okay. All right. I still am a fan of he's from a town called Three Heads.
To be honest,
Something
that
so
one
simple.
is very fun too.
I'm a path of least resistance kinda guy. I like my heroes to hit their problems over the head with a big ol' club, and I like my monsters to be named because that's where they came from.
I mean, most monsters are gonna be in your wheelhouse then. I'm looking at you, Cromionia and Sal. But while I was doing all of this research, I did come across one poem that was referencing Cerberus. And we're done with all of our myths for today, but I wanted to share this poem because I thought it really summarized the well-captured dread that Riordan manages to evoke in this chapter. So this is from Propertius's Elegies, which is a series of poems. Elegies are specifically serious poems that are typically written about the dead. And this one is specifically written about dying. He writes, "Go now, indulge your imagination, dream of your triumphs, enjoy the whole theater's standing ovation, outdo Attilus's cloths of gold, and let the great games be all a glitter. You'll yet yield them to the flames. All must still go there, high or low of station, through evil, this road's frequented by all. The triple-headed baying hound Cerberus must be entreated. The grim old boatman, Charon's common ferry, must be boarded. Though a cautious man sheath himself in iron or bronze, death will still drag down his hidden head."
Mm, that's really good. I like that.
That's poem number 18 in book 3 for anyone who wants to go look for it themselves. But I came across it as I was just looking at references to Cerberus and Charon, and I thought it fitting for this chapter since it does mention both of our main mythological players. And
Yeah. How apt.
the message is dreadfully morbid and yet hopeful at the same time,
Mhm.
which, again, I thought fitting for this chapter. It's just well done. Go enjoy all that life has to offer because in the end, everyone dies no matter what you did in life.
Yeah, it's the great equalizer.
That's all. That's what I have for us today. I know I've ended on kind of a somber note, but
Woo! Woohoo! Yippee! But Connor, it's okay. We're dead now, properly. We can finally see Hades.
I'm sure that'll go so well for our intrepid band of heroes.
You're damn right it will.
I'm excited. You know
I
what?
am too.
You got me. This chapter was better than I originally gave it credit for. I came in kind of ho-hum, and I'm leaving really excited because this chapter did evoke something. And I think when you consider that it was trying to send a very clear message, it sent that very clear message very well. And I'm impressed.
What can I say? You gave me a challenge to persuade you. I never back down.
This is not the first time you have persuaded me on something, nor will it be the last, I'm sure.
Oh man, but Connor, let's just drink it in for a second. We're nearing the end of the book.
We're
I'm looking at the
really
top.
close.
I'm looking at the top of the book right now. I'm looking where my bookmark is, and we're getting near the end of it. This is the last, at least in my memory, big hurdle
Yeah.
before we're just cruising to the end.
I think you're forgetting about, and I'll just spoil it, so spoiler alert, the big ass battle with Ares that happens in the chapter right after they get out of the underworld.
Oh, yeah, I did forget that.
But I do think that those two chapters collectively serve as the
Yeah.
climax. Because we're going to be going from this to Hades, then Ares, then kind of winding down, right? Your falling
Mhm.
action and your resolution.
Yeah. Look at how far we've come.
We're in the home stretch, and it has been one hell of a ride, pun intended.
Good one, man. Good one. If you wanna cut that out.
Nope, I'm leaving that one in.
You know what? Way to say it with your full chest. What a way to end it, Connor. Alright. I say let's get into it.
I am so excited. Well, I guess we will see you all next time as we make our way with Percy, Annabeth, and Grover up to the Palace of Hades. Should be a good one. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support our content, please please be sure to leave a review, share with your friend, and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, this has been Notes from the Oracle. You like that poem? I really like that.
That was a great poem. I really, really enjoyed that. Very profound.
I'm glad. The myths were pretty straightforward, short, but evocative. I like it. The theming was really good. I kind of got to do, I guess maybe I should have branded it this way, but this was like the Underworld Special Part 1.
Yeah, it was a good spattering of things. I feel like sometimes, and it's not a bad thing, but sometimes the myths are very tailored.
Yeah.
This was just kind of like, hey, here's a hodgepodge mix of common traits and themes and characters within the underworld proper.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of
Again, I would
stories
say
to hit on.
very apt for the chapter.
Yep. Yep. Not a lot of stories to hit on, just kind of that. I'm going to tell you a few things about this big old dog
Mhm.
and this other guy who wears a condom hat.
That's so great. Oh man,
Dog, I'm
I
telling
was
you,
being go ahead.
you gotta go look up picture this
Oh,
guy
I'm
in his
going
hat.
to. I
Oh,
am
good.
100% going to. But I was gonna say I was being a bit glib, but I am excited that I changed your opinion a bit on your view of this chapter. Again, I feel like it would be it's definitely up there. I do wanna do at some point like a tier list where we just break down each of the chapters and say what are our favorites, what order would we rank them
I'm
in?
looking forward
This
to
is a
that, to be honest with
I
you.
think this one is in the top 3rd for me. I genuinely think that, which is
I think
again
you might be
very
convincing me.
surprising for a point A to point B chapter.
I mean, I'm looking at the chapter list right now. I think you've convinced me. I think if I start plotting out what are my favorite chapters, this one, because there's 22 in total. So is this in my top 7?
Mm,
Probably. Like,
mm.
I think this is actually pretty easily going to make its way into the top 7.
Man, this is great. I didn't realize I could win a podcast, but here I am.
You have. You found the
I've
way.
done it.
Success.